my first question, yourself with Erica, is yes. So it's a very positive message that you are supporting innovation in Antwerp and you provide all kinds of facilities, including financial as well as non-financial. But what about the people? Do people in the city accept drones flying in their backyards? How do they react? What's your experience of talking to people?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, and even I speak for myself, if you're getting out of your bed or bath, and you're facing a drone before your window. I experienced it once in Italy. Yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable. That you think, oh, hey, my privacy. What are you doing here? Nobody has something to do with my business. But on the other way, and there is a regularization, of course, privacy rules, which are necessary and very, very, very important. And that's I think the issue with drones. You need them, I think, in the future, and they are the future for a lot of mobility problems and to make it smarter and to make it faster and face those problems. But you also need to be aware that it has an impact on people's lives.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a give and take. So, and I think we all and the communities will need to be ready to accept there's a little bit of a give and take as such. I go back to the days when internet came in, and it was all very good. Everyone was excited that we can go and, let's call it, surf the superhighway. I didn't use that term, by the way. And it's just one of those things. And look where we are right now, as opposed to where we were 20 years ago as such. So thank you for that. I do have a question for the hospital side of things, both from Evelyn and Willeke. You touched on it, both ladies. But how does your business model in your hospitals incorporate the financial sustainability that you may or may not gain from drones? Where do you see drones helping you achieve that financial sustainability? Perhaps we can start with Willeke.
I think it's important as an alternative of our transport. And transport is not predictable nowadays. Even we have samples were transported by taxis, they're cabs. And of course, if they are stuck in the traffic, it takes time, and that time costs money, so that's easy. And we also have taxi drivers who sometimes go drink something on their way. Then we also lose time, and drones are not stopping to drink something. Just to say, when you're depending on a human factor, you're always depending on not always predictable. That's a fact. So it's important to have predictable way of working, which is also a way to be economic efficient. That's one. It's also important to integrate drones in your processes. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't work to send people to the rooftop with a little bag and put the samples in the drone. It has to be fully integrated with drone ports. It has to be connected with our IT systems. Otherwise, it won't be a good business case. But it will be an investment to let that work, that's clear. Indeed. But I think in the long term, you will have a return on investment when you integrate those things in your processes and when they are predictable, lean and fast.
Thank you. Evelyn, would you like to elaborate anything on that, please?
I think the same quickly result for sample for the patient, better care for and quickly care for our patient, and with the new norm for the PICs for the pharmacy, we will must change the care for the patient because it's very expensive. And if we didn't work same with the network, we will have problem to have the subsidies, sure. The money to can do this need. Yeah. And I think we cannot think to work without drones in the future, because we must do the transport between the many hospitals.
Thank you.
Maybe in addition, the hospital networks, you were naming it, are forced to concentrate also expensive high technology labs. But also, we are also with the Setena colleagues, we are building a central pharmacies. And that's on one place, because we can't pay on every site a big pharmacy. Also, in the production of chemotherapy, we need to centralize those things, and then transport gets key again. So that's also important in our business case, because you can centralize, but when you pay a lot for your transport, it doesn't really work. So that's why we hope to meet our challenges with drone transport.
It's very exciting. I think it's a learning outcome, certainly for non-medical people like myself. So what you ladies are advocating is we need a holistic approach. It needs to come really at the bottom of the strategy of your business model and drive from there as such. Now, Tome, you've highlighted your challenges, both in the urban and rural side of it. The Prime Minister is sitting in front of you. What help, what support do you need from the nation? What support do you need from the government?
Well, the support I need... I will just do a kind of flashback. Go back to end of 18th century, where machines are invented, and then cars are invented, but there are no roads. There is no code de la route. There's no regulation around all that. There's no certification for the cars. There's nothing. And people invented cars, drive cars, make accidents, but drive anyway. Now we're in the situation where we have the drones, we have the knowledge, the technology, but we do not have the regulation from one side, and that's a message for Europe and then for the nations later. But the other message is, where are the roads? We need routes to fly. And shall we bear, as, let us say, customer of this new technology, the cost of building the roads to reach the hospitals? Or should this be a kind of public benefit, something offered by the government to the society?
Every session that I moderate and have moderated, it always involves at least one Pandora's box question. And I think what you've just highlighted there, Tome, it really is. It's $1 million question in Europe right now. Who pays for the use space, the technology, the digital air traffic management? Is it a public thing that the government should pay for it? Should the cost be translated or transferred to the consumer? Should it be borne by the private sector itself? Where does it go? And there are many answers. Well, I suppose there are many models, business models, and we are, I guess, in this journey right now where we're trying to figure out the most suitable one for all. But your question is absolutely spot on.
And I'm not just throwing the question to the authority. We are part of the new situation to be built. And we are willing to work with authorities to build up this new situation. But we need it quite urgently. It will not take 1 century to develop that. That's the problem. And so we need to be very efficient in the interaction, to build up the regulation, to find a way to build up the routes, and to have all this infrastructure necessary to operate.
Thank you. Well, let's take some questions from the audience. I've got plenty, so we can carry on for the whole afternoon, but I'm sure you don't just want to listen to me. Any questions from the audience, please? Your Prime Minister's here. It's your time. Honestly, it's another time to be shy. Okay. None? Oh, hang on. The gentleman at the back, the blue jacket.
Good afternoon. I'm Piet Fontaine, CEO from the Europe Hospitals in Brussels. Can anyone give us a time frame in which we actually could realize what we're talking about today?
Could I ask Giancarlo, you to perhaps take a stab at that?
Thank you. Yes, I was thinking.
Thank you for the question.
If our regulatory framework is unnoticed, that means at least we haven't over-regulated. which is a good news. But the regulatory framework is there. It's quite complete for the open category. It's just a matter of having the right standards for the off-the-shelf drones, and they will come in the coming months. For the specific category, the framework is there as well. It's already implemented. It was already implemented in the past in some member states. So for this medium risk operation, there is a regulatory framework. When we talk about the certified category, transport of people, the large drones, transport of cargo, yes, there are still some regulatory blocks to be implemented, to be prepared, to be adopted, and EASA is working at a very fast speed to fill those regulatory gaps. So to answer your question, I would say that in terms of transport of people, we have the Olympic Games in Paris coming up, 2024, and we understand that there will already be some operations taking place in the context of the Olympic Games. And we know that based on this experience, others will follow. I'm thinking to the Olympic Games in the Winter Olympic Games in Cortina d'Ampezzo, where there is also a plan. But I'd like to come back to one point of what we can do at European level, and the fact that we are here together today is prompted by the European Union activities, and CSRGU is doing a fantastic job in helping out in promoting this demonstration, which goes hand in hand with the regulatory developments, which we are working on together with the agency. And then comes the other important part, which is municipalities, the local level, which has to sort of sell all of this to the citizens. And this is why with our Drone Strategy 2.0, we are trying to bring more instruments, more tools for the municipalities, for the cities, for the regions, in order to be able to promote and have drone activities, drone operation, being part of the daily life of the citizens.
Sure, very much so. There's another question just where you are, Tim.
Thank you, that was a great panel. It's for the first time that we see demand really expressing the need for developing use space and UTM solutions. And Mike, don't worry.
Start again. No, only joking, only joking.
Anytime you want. And this is the first time that you see demand expressing the need for developing use-based solutions, drone solutions. And then my question is, I already have participated to hundreds of conferences from the drone world. And this is the first time that I'm sitting here in a conference on demand. To which extent could we bring the two sides in a more structural way together? Because from the one side, I see that you are looking also from the internal organization of your hospital chain, and you're waiting for making investments to get the transportation organized in a more efficient way. And on the other hand, I see very promising small companies willing to invest in new space, but they don't find investors. Because investors, they also want to see a timeline, a roadmap, and so on. And this is the first time that we see such a demand and supply sitting together. And to which extent could we, at the national or even European level, bring demand and supply better together, that you streamline the need for investments? That's my question.
It's a very good question with a part answer in it, but I think the other part, I will let Giancarlo, would you like to have a stab at it?
Yes, I think one of the approach we have taken in one of the elements of our regulatory approach is to create market conditions. Yeah. We have done so for the drone operations, and certainly for the use space, where we expect that one was asking who is going to pay. I think you were asking who is going to pay. Yeah. The market will pay. This is what we would like, because this is what will ensure that there will be low prices for the end users, and it will support the competitiveness throughout the whole value chain.
And we don't have the monopolies.
And avoiding monopolies, yes.
As such, okay, one last question, I think, to Adrian. Adrian, from a technology point of view, particularly from cybersecurity point of view, when a drone is flying, carrying the patient's samples or blood, it's obviously a very critical thing as such. Now, losing the data that belongs to that blood sample or lab specimen is a huge thing. What technologies are there, or what technologies are being developed from a cybersecurity perspective to mitigate the risk of this?
Well, I was told by Michael that no data is carried. I was told by Michael that no data is carried on board the drone that can trace back any. You cannot identify the patient through the drone itself. Doesn't mean that bad actors won't target databases or other systems to obtain such information. I just want to give it a little bit of context. So we're now into digitalization and automatization of the European sky, the single digital European sky. That will lead to a lot of more interconnectivity, which also leads to a lot more vulnerabilities. I think under the former SAFIR, SAFIR-2, Ju-2, there was a deliverable. I think they identified something like 80 vulnerabilities already in those systems. So, yeah, blockchain is something that's being mentioned, but blockchain, we're not really there yet to have it in all points and all end users. We're not there in terms of processing power or in algorithms. That's what my engineers just told me when I got on the. I'm the compliance guy within the business, so that's what they told me just before this. The other thing is to better encryption methods. Chains encryption often make it more difficult. When you do bulk encryption, don't stay to one method. And the third one, and I think it's good that it's in the pipeline, in the EASA pipeline, Opinion 3 of 2021, which will cover a broad spectrum. Right, so a lot of stakeholders in the entire value chain of aviation, so manufacturers, use-based service providers, and navigation service providers. So in that sense, which also comes to the forefront, is to have a better, it's not only about technologies, it's also about methodology, threat methodology, assessment, and intelligence.
Thank you, Adrian. And the threats are always changing, so we need to be ahead of it, not behind it.
And they're getting bigger.
They're getting bigger, yes.
Actors, yes.
Well, I'm only left with now to thank my panel for a very open and transparent discussion. Thank you all very much. I think if there's one takeaway that I'm going to take away, I'm sure you all have your own, is particularly in this world where we're trying to get aviation as an industry to start collaborating with non-aviation sectors, such as, in this case, it's medical, but there's also maritime, there's rail, there's roads. Perhaps, and coming from the aviation industry, Eurocontrol, myself, we, at least geeks of aviation, for the first time, we are being confronted and challenged to start looking at this whole thing in a much wider and a broader perspective. This is a new animal. We're trying to figure out how many legs, how many arms, how many nose, how many teeth it's got. And I think slowly but surely we're trying to get there. So there's this one takeaway for me is that we need to learn more from the medical sector on what your needs are, as Koen pointed out, very much so, because we can only design the right solutions for you once we understand what you need. And likewise, I think we'd also like to share some common terminology that different sectors have, because often we use words and terminology that we don't understand for each other. With that, I'd like to close the panel. Thank you all very much, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.